All right, you guys, Think Bigger podcast, community conversations. The guest today is Dave Tormey of CANIBEAT, First Class Fitment, and a lot of other things, family man, father, husband, etc.
Yep.
So, Dave, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Mike. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's fitting because here we are.
Yeah.
First Class Fitment just went down.
Yeah.
10th anniversary, last one. So it's just a logical and easy place to start.
No, it's good.
So let's talk, Dave.
Yeah.
How? Why? When? The last one. Why the last one?
Yeah. That's the big question of the weekend, I guess. Yesterday was our 10th annual event and our last event, and I guess maybe sometime after last year's event, which was our 9th one. It's always been kind of a season closer for us in the October time frame here in the Northeast, and so there's not many other events afterwards. We all kind of get ready for the winter season's right around the corner, and we don't necessarily see each other as much as close car friends in that in the winter season when our cars are tucked away and there aren't many events going on. And over those few months, kind of got to thinking, and we knew it would be our 10th anniversary coming up this year in 2019, and we were excited, but at the same time, I think we looked at it as a potential opportunity to kind of not only celebrate a milestone, a 10th anniversary, but also maybe kind of wrap things up. So, when you look at over the past 10 years and CANIBEAT and our history and the event and how it's evolved over the years, CANIBEAT started as an online blog, an e-magazine, if you will, where we were featuring cars and other event coverage and doing editorials and things like that in 2009. And that was kind of the core of CANIBEAT and how the brand started. And fast forward a few years, in 2015, we had some issues with our website and our servers, and we were just a few weeks out from First Class Fitment that year, and our websites crashed, and we were just in the middle of registration for the event, and long story short, we lost a lot of history with our website, with our features and some of the data.
It was gone forever.
Not gone forever, coincidentally, and maybe we can touch on that.
But in that moment,
we had lost a lot of data, and we had some backups. Everyone might wonder, like, oh, how'd you lose everything? Like, it's 2015. How do you not have a backup?
Sure.
Or, and we did have some backups, but not as recent as we would have liked. And Christian, Roy, and myself that were behind the CANIBEAT brand and the blog and everything that came with it. None of us are web developers or server admins or guys that do that on a daily basis. We all have careers far outside of that space.
Right.
So we always leaned on other individuals or friends or people that we've met along the way that were more familiar with that
Sure.
territory and helping us manage the servers or website, etc. And we had unfortunately relied on someone that we had thought was supporting the website and backing up things regularly and on a regular frequency, and they weren't.
I see.
And then when we had learned that and we tried to catch up on that regular or backup process, at that time, actually during a regular backup, is when the server crashed. So that's when we kind of had to scramble and prioritize the upcoming event for that year and get, not let it, kind of impede the process of registering cars and, planning for the event. And so we focused on getting the First Class Fitment website back up and the registration page and all of those things. And as time went on and the event came and went and we were able to get the website back up for the car show, we struggled with piecing together some of the features we had lost, the photos that we had lost, etc. And it was a tough moment for us. I think it was years at that point, 5-6 years of work that we had lost bits and pieces of, and some of the recent content that we had produced that was probably some of our better work. And so we the reason I mentioned that, I guess, is that's a long way of saying that we haven't had a website up for several years, and we've been focused on First Class Fitment, but it does require a lot of time leading up to the event and planning and getting it ready. And I think we just got to a point where I know for me personally, it's a good chunk of my time outside of my day job and work and family and other things that can put a strain on things at times.
Of course.
And it just felt like I guess the easy short way of saying is it felt like the right time. I'd rather I said to myself at one point, I guess, and my wife and other people, or it's like I'd rather end it on a positive or a high note, hopefully, than potentially let, if other things work and other priorities in life got in the way of it, and I was still trying to carry on the event with Christian and Roy and our friends, and it, for some reason, the quality or the amount of time I was able to commit to it wasn't sufficient, and the event suffered because of it, then, it just wouldn't feel right to me, I guess. So I felt like, while I still have the time and energy and passion for it, let's wrap it up and go out on a high note and celebrate the 10th anniversary with everyone.
I mean, look, it's 10-year decade. That's a great number. It's definitely a number that indicates longevity. 2, 3 is one thing. Sure. 4, 5 is another. But to get to 10, and from number 1, people have spoken highly of the event. The airport, that was your idea, right? You pitched it to them. So let's just talk about that. Yeah. Why? How did you find or think of that particular venue?
Yeah. I look back to 2009, 2010 when CANIBEAT was starting, and I was just out of college and kind of really getting into photography and taking more photos, more automotive photography, and I was having a lot of fun with it, and CANIBEAT kind of coincided with that, and I was the first photographer for CANIBEAT, and then that evolved over the years, but I guess with that, as an automotive photographer, one of the things I'm always looking for is kind of a unique backdrop for some of those photos that I take, or for something that's appropriate for the car that I'm shooting or the feature that I'm working on, etc. And we had attended a lot of events in 2010, as our first kind of full year as CANIBEAT, vending and setting up a booth at other people's events around the country. Yeah. And had a lot of fun doing that, but we attended kind of a variety of events, and ranging from Import Alliance in Tennessee, where Roy, Christian, and I actually first met, to East Coast Honda Meet in Richmond, Virginia, to IBOC out, just as really spectators, and going as a group in California, and bouncing around to other events and setting up a booth, Honda Day, etc., and Volkswagen events, and it kind of all kind of gave us a flavor, I think, for different styles and types of events. Some small and more niche, and some large and open to everything, and more about just bringing together as many people as possible. And I think it all kind of shaped the direction of FCF in some small way, where it was like, we've never hosted an event, but as we neared the end of that first full season as Can I Beat, we thought we might try and host our first event. And we went to a lot of events that were some indoors, some outdoors, but most outdoor car events either are at a racetrack or a parking lot.
Yes.
Or there's certain types of formats that have been repeated or just work. Where can you fit X number of cars on a blacktop in a parking lot, etc. So. But as a photographer, part of me just wanted to try and provide a backdrop that was unique, or that in some small way you could walk around a car show and spectators or attendees could take photos of cars at our event that would be the types of photos, hopefully, that I would like to shoot of those same cars for a full photo shoot or for a feature. Yes. Or, something that maybe you wouldn't typically see that car in that setting. So we were thinking of what that venue might be, what could fit that, and what could, provide a unique space for us. And at the time, I was still living with my parents. I was in my early 20s, fresh out of college, and I had my first full-time job, and I was driving by the Princeton airport every day to and from work.
It was just on the path.
Yeah, just naturally on the road I took to work every day. And I, Roy, Christian, and I had been talking about this. Where do we go? They're from Virginia. I was, from New Jersey and living in New Jersey at the time. Do we do something in Virginia? Do we do something in New Jersey? Do we find somewhere in between? Like, we weren't even sure geographically what made sense. But I had seen planes fly over my head one day in traffic going home from work, and kind of got the wheels turning, I think, in my head, thinking, hey, what about an airport? It was kind of a long shot idea, I guess, and just random thought, but it had us thinking, there's a lot of paved surface, whether it's the runway or, other parts of the airport. There's a space, it's different. Yeah. It's not something that we had seen before, or, been to an event that was at an airport. So with that, we just kind of said, well, we don't know if it's possible until we ask. And so I walked in one day after work and stopped in. I'd never been there before, didn't know anyone. And I said, is there anyone I can talk to? I live in the area, and I'm a car guy, and I'm interested in maybe hosting a car show here at the airport, if that's something I don't know if that's exactly what I said. It was 10 years ago, but something along those lines. And I got introduced to one of the owners of the airport, and he didn't turn me down right away, and he heard me out, and he thought it could work, and it was possible if we could kind of agree on the terms and the timing, and all that worked, because the airport's open 365 days a year.
Yes.
Planes and helicopters have to get in and out. They legally have an obligation for emergency landings.
Yes.
So they can't shut down the runway. So I quickly learned the hopes of having a car show on the runway were
not possible.
Squashed.
Yes.
But hey, maybe we can use the rest of the airport. And so that kind of changed the what the initial idea might have been to, okay, well, but maybe there's still something here.
Yeah.
And we kind of went with that. I think when we look back on it and talk about it, I think Ken at the airport and his family thought it was maybe just me and some friends that were going to show up and park our cars and hang out and have a good time. But we put a lot of effort into that first year and trying to make it something special. And even though it was much smaller than yesterday's 10th anniversary event, it was still a special day and what I think was a successful first event.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, like you were talking about how he said, he might have presumed that it was just going to be some of you. I mean, when he came out during the awards, you took the time to thank him.
Yeah.
And he's just like, remember he grabbed the mic and he was just like, give me this thing.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I just thought it was a bunch of crazy kids. And I didn't really think it was, but they made something of it. And then, that's a really cool thing, but that type of rapport doesn't come from acting like an idiot. That type of rapport doesn't come from bringing shitty cars.
Yeah.
Let's just call a spade a spade.
Yeah.
That type of rapport doesn't come from you emailing them with improper grammar and speaking like an uneducated individual.
Sure.
You carry yourself with class. Mm-hmm. You walked in there. You spoke professionally, and you presented this idea. I think that those types of things, albeit somewhat obvious to some,
Sure.
and there's other people who are going to listen and be like, because I always talk about grammar, I always talk about speaking properly,
Okay, yeah.
and there's an entire world of people that are like, dude, it's not that serious.
Yeah.
Like on social media, they're
Sure.
always just like, it's just social media, who cares?
Yeah.
But you know what? It matters.
No, it does.
And people who know you will say that you're a little bit more mild-mannered and soft-spoken.
Yeah.
But when you need to, it would make sense
Yeah.
to be able to present oneself with class.
Yep.
And I think that that's one of the reasons why people end up supporting. And it kind of leans towards how and why I think you ended up getting that type of tone and vibe and turnout.
Sure.
Like the IBOC meet, same thing.
Yeah.
You have a niche where you could get a lot of foolishness.
Yeah.
And we don't.
Yeah.
But that comes from the way you present yourself and things like that. So I think that part is a slightly underrated angle.
Oh, I agree.
How you present yourself and carry yourself.
Yep.
And so there you go. I mean, you mentioned the photography and how always looking for that backdrop.
Sure.
And the airport kind of clicked one day.
Yeah.
But like you said, and Christian had touched on that too, the Import Alliance out in Nashville, and you had already been fairly established in the niche as a photographer, and you meet him there, the Blue EP.
Yeah.
And I believe it was you, right, who said, "Hey, do you mind if I do this rig shot?"
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what, around the fountain?
Yeah. So it was Import Alliance 2009.
But is that literally when you guys first met? Had
Yeah.
you been introduced in any context online or anything like that?
Not really, no.
Okay.
No, I think in person that weekend, maybe the day before, was probably the first time I had met Christian. And we as a New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York, kind of Honda community and group, planned to cruise down from up here down to Nashville that year. It was a big, forums were big, and Honda Tech, NWP, and a lot of us were very active in that space, and at least in the Northeast, and so we all cruised down. But then along the way, the plan was to meet up with some of the guys in Virginia. And so some of the guys up here from New York and Pennsylvania and maybe New Jersey had gone the year prior in 2008, or maybe even before that. But it was my first year in 2009 to make the trip with one of my cars and with the group. And so some of them had already, some of my mutual friends up here in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and New York had already, knew Christian, knew Christopher, maybe Roy, and some of those guys down south. But I didn't.
But you had seen the car online.
Yeah, so Christian actually was... So I'd seen his car and actually taken photos of it in previous years in Richmond, Virginia, not too far from where they live, at other events. At East Coast Honda Meet was a big event back in the day. And so... But I never... I hadn't made the connection at that point. I was just a guy from New Jersey who... with my friend Bill, we'd drive down from, New Jersey to Richmond and go to the event by ourselves, and we didn't know Christian or any of those guys. So it wasn't until Import Alliance in that year we made that trip that we stopped along the way on our drive, and Christian and Christopher and Roy and all those guys, several other guys, joined us on the, kind of the caravan down. to Tennessee, and Christian was debuting. I remember, kind of like a new look that year. It was kind of a big thing. It was the big wide SSR super mesh wheels and Airwalker bumper, lip, and and new seat status seats, and he had put a lot of time and effort into like kind of changing up the look of his car that year, and it was something different that people hadn't seen, and it was cool. And so when we finally got down to Nashville, and everyone would stay at the La Quinta Hotel in Nashville, and that was a big thing, and one thing led to another. There used to be a big barbecue either maybe the day or 2 days before the big Import Alliance event at the track at this huge mansion. And one of the guys that was in the community, in the Honda community, I think, who was other local friends in the Nashville area. His parents had a large house in that Nashville area and invited everyone that was coming to the event, or not everyone, obviously. Import Alliance is a big event, but a lot of the Honda guys, I should say, that were traveling from out of state and locals, would come over, and I think that happened a few years at least. And so that year, we went to the house and we brought our cars, hung out, barbecue, pool, whatever. And Christian had his EP there, and it was this beautiful house with like a little fountain in the front of it, and kind of a circle around the fountain, and there's a driveway. And I had my rig with me, and I was getting into that and experimenting with it, but I really hadn't. I'd only had it on one car actually before. Two cars. One mine, experimenting, my personal car, and another car local here. And then went down to Import Alliance, was still like learning it and playing around with it. But I had asked, I was hoping to do more shoots and experiment with it while we were in Nashville. And so Christian, I asked him if we could do it, and we did it there. And, it's funny kind of looking back on that shot in that moment now, but I guess it's one of those moments where it's like, kind of like the airport, it's like, it's kind of a common theme for me. It's like, you can't hurt to ask. Like, sometimes it's a matter of like taking that leap of faith or that risk, or that, even if you're uncomfortable or you think the odds are stacked against you, like, it can't hurt. If it's something you're interested in or passionate about, or you want to try it or whatever, just ask, or just put yourself out there. And so here's a kid, I didn't really know Christian that well, just had met him the day before on the way down, and saw an opportunity and went for it.
Okay. And so obviously, cliche, the rest is history, right? But how did this gathering, this convoy, you go to another state, you attend an event, mansion, all these circumstances, right? But putting yourself out there to go up to an individual to say, you mind if I take this photo? How does that turn into a group of guys, right, who created, two brands? CANIBEAT and First Class Fitment. Those are two brands. Right?
In a way.
So how did you guys decide to do it? Whose idea? Who did you guys have a powwow? Like, how did it come to be? So it's funny.
So like Import Alliance that year was always in July, right? So a summer thing. We go down there for a few days, long weekend. We all trek back, and then we all live several hours apart. I don't recall exactly, but I know I probably didn't see them for another couple months, and then it wasn't until later in that year, 2009, that some other blogs were starting to pop up online. Hella Flush started to become a big thing. Like, so Market Fat Lace was pushing that and working on that, and it became very, very, in my world at least, or our world at the time, was it was like a daily visit, right? You go check out what they're posting or sharing, and some other blogs as well. But with that, anyways, it was like around November of 2009 that Roy and Christian, they're not only into the cars, but they're into like kind of streetwear and apparel and that part of the culture, and sneakers and other stuff. And and appreciated quality photography and videos and all that stuff. So they came up with the name CANIBEAT, and as a group of local friends in Virginia and amongst Rowan Christian, kind of figured out the domain and the website, started it, and a couple, maybe 2-3 weeks into it, I think it was, I made a trip down to Virginia to hang out with them.
Yes.
And I forget what the occasion was exactly. I don't even know if we had a reason, but nonetheless, we went down there, and again, I was kind of given or presented, kind of had the opportunity to shoot their cars again. So not only Christians, but Roy's, and both of them had EP3s at the time.
Yeah, the blue and the white one.
And it was kind of like, hey, maybe this would be a cool shot. And we had some other cars lined up to shoot. Our friend Drew's Q45 at the time, which was like one of the early VIP builds in the Northeast.
Yeah.
And some other cool cars that day, and then so we kind of all got together for this shoot. I think I actually shot 8 or 9 cars that day, but one of the big ones, or the main reason, was to shoot Rowan Christians, and I had just gotten some flashes and was experimenting with that for the photography, and I shot their cars, and I took several photos, but a couple, or one really in particular, of their 2 cars ended up being kind of a standout, and was lucky enough, kind of got shared around. It ended up on Speed Hunters and Stanceworks and some of these other blogs, and then they had just kind of started this CANIBEAT thing, but at the time they were just reposting other people's photos and not original content. It was just and it wasn't even just cars, it was just almost like a Tumblr feed, if you will.
Sure.
First few weeks, they were figuring it out, but it quickly, as a kind of someone who was just really getting into the photography and shooting more and more myself, I was like, well, I'd love to, contribute, and then we got some other photographers to contribute and kind of sign up, and the idea quickly became, let's stop reposting other stuff, but let's create original content.
Yeah, and like we were talking about earlier, shout out to Sam Piva.
Yeah.
He was one of your guys' first photographers.
Yeah, right? Sam Piva, Corey Stover, who was at the event yesterday with his STI, and several other guys that if you look back, we have some funny screenshots where we had photos of maybe 6 or 8 of our original photographers and contributors that they had each had their own photo and their name on the banner of the on the sidebar of the site, and we all look had funny photos, but it was that was kind of our first push of really kind of just focusing on creating our own original content.
So speaking of photography, right? I mean, that's, as we've talked about, that's how you met these gentlemen.
Yeah.
That's what you were into. How did Dave get into photography? Who did you follow? What inspired you to go and buy your own camera and just start going at that?
Yeah, no, I think, I probably attributed a lot of it to forums, honestly.
Okay.
So, forums and magazines. You know, I was like a lot of guys our age, I was a subscriber to several magazines. So, Honda Tuning was one I always looked forward to. Import Tuner, Super Street.
Those are the ones,
I didn't probably subscribe to Modified, but I knew of it, followed it. All those guys, that kind of almost golden era of like automotive tuning magazines or import magazines, and some even earlier than that. But so you would look forward to those every month, and then there's people online that would also share cool photos of their cars and post build threads, etc. And I think between the two and friends, it probably kind of just inspired me to and some of our local friends to start taking photos of our own cars, even back to my first car. And so my first camera was a point and shoot, actually film camera.
Sure.
And we took photos of our cars with that, and and then eventually that stepped up to a first SLR, and then kind of just naturally grew from there. But photography and cars always have gone
just came hand in hand.
Yeah.
I figured as much,
So-
but okay. So you're referencing the magazines.
Yeah.
So when you wanted to get your own setup to start shooting, was it to contribute to the magazines? Was that already a
Yeah,
thought, or was it more to emulate the quality of the type of imagery you were seeing in them, or both?
Probably a little bit of both, I guess.
So you
know, at
already
the
felt
time-
like, I can do that, I just need to practice? Was it already in your head?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I mean, early on, I don't think maybe I had any aspirations of like, contributing to a magazine. I think, I was maybe
So
it
was
felt
this
like a
a-
long shot, right?
was a
I
source of inspiration.
I was 18 years old,
Yeah.
17 years old, and like it just felt like, this is, whether it's like, I guess I got some satisfaction out of like capturing the moments, memories with friends,
Yes.
cars, as they evolved that we were modifying for
Yeah.
our first cars and all those things. And so I enjoyed that enough to continue to do it. And then, I guess at some point along the way, I think I enjoyed the creative process, but I also enjoyed the learning and constant learning, really. Like, every time you go out, you pick up something new maybe, or you try and experiment with something, a new technique or new settings or new environment or whatever it may be. And I think that process of kind of experimenting and learning and getting feedback from other people that you either look up to or respect or friends. I liked that kind of creative space, and it was different than what I was doing at work and what I did in school. And so it kind of added a different side of things for me.
Okay, so that's photography that we're going from that point forward. But what about before the magazines inspired you to want to shoot, right? How did you even get into those magazines? How did the Hondas, right? That's the first car you were into. How did that even happen for Dave?
Like just getting into Hondas in
general? Why
general?
not?
Yeah.
I mean, you're in an area of the country where there's winter. So why not big trucks? Why not anything else? Four-wheel, Foresters or any, there's a lot of sub niches.
Sure.
How Hondas? How? Why?
It's funny. I guess I look back and when, the time came, like, I learned to drive on my mom's Volkswagen Passat wagon.
Okay.
I guess my dad has always been a car guy.
Yes.
And, he's the type of guy that could tell you the difference between a 1965 and a 1966 Corvette, and little details and colors and offerings and what changed, and I guess maybe I picked a little bit of that up over the years. But he also has had a variety of different cars from his youth to through adulthood and more recent years or whatever. So so there wasn't any, like, it wasn't like he was like a strong like Chevy guy or Euro guy or whatever. He wasn't leaning anyone.
But it was there were domestics though.
No, actually. So he, one of his cars that he always looks back on that he loved was a 66 Corvette Stingray, 427 convertible. Like, what if kind of car, like what if I still had it? What if I never got rid of that kind of car for him? And of course that's a car that a lot of people like lust after and love still to this day. But he had tons of Volkswagen Beetles, old Honda Civics and Accords, Preludes, MGs, and
was he fixing them and flipping them, or what was he doing?
No, like just over the life, like as a teenager.
And you remember them?
No, so like some of them predate me as a kid, and I just know there's just kind of, I don't know. My dad likes telling stories, and like talking about that stuff, and so I remember those stories, I guess. So that's kind of some of those cars that I just mentioned are before I was around, and my parents had kids, but then as it's funny because there was that side of it, but then as a kid, like my dad had a truck and a minivan, or
Yeah.
and a Saab, and then at some point, it was, I think, when I was in middle school, he got a 1999 Volkswagen Mark III VR6 GTI
Yeah.
in Ginster yellow, and it was a bright Mark III
Those are fun
hatchback,
cars, man.
VR6, and he lowered it on H&R coilovers and did brakes and little odds and ends, and had it, tuned by GIAC and AWE Motorsports and art, like little things like that. He was tinkering around and having a fun car again for the first time in years. So like that was a kind of a impressionable car for me. Because
how old were you when you had this particular Volkswagen?
12, 13,
okay.
And 14 maybe. And so, it was kind of cool. And leading up to almost when I got to my got a license and my first car. And so I could have very easily gone that route and gotten a Volkswagen. It certainly crossed my mind, hell, I dreamed that he would someday give me that car and it would be my first car, but it was, that wasn't in the cards. And so, I think when I was looking at the time, I was looking at Mitsubishi Eclipses and Honda Preludes, and then somehow, I got on kind of the Honda kick, and probably for a lot of the same reasons other guys do. There's a lot of, I had the interest already to maybe modify something and make it my own or customize a car, regardless of what it ended up being.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of offerings in the Honda platform, whether it's a Civic or an Integra
and aftermarket support.
Yeah, aftermarket support, and they tend to be easier to work on and reliable. So, maybe my parents, like, the practical side of them probably saw some reason for maybe a Honda or a Japanese car. And then, my first car ended up being a 98 Integra GSR. And, it was just a fun car that had a lot of different offerings and aftermarket support. And I enjoyed
so as
it.
far as you can remember, your dad's been a car guy, right? Yeah. So like you talked about everything from MGs to Corvettes, to Japanese, European, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it was cool that he wasn't one of these, like you said, a Chevy or a Ford guy, die hard. He just liked cars, and not just that, but modifying them, like the Volkswagen, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a little bit of that, and
so
then
it's
some
just
probably
been something
didn't. But
those are just, it's kind of part of you then.
Yeah, he's a mechanical guy. He's an engineer. He likes someone once said he was a perpetual tinkerer. Yeah. And he just likes to he likes to understand how things work, and he likes to work on things.
So he never discouraged the whole picking up these small Hondas. He never discouraged that.
No, not at all. No, I think he liked them and liked the idea of a Civic or an Integra.
Do you ever does he ever hop in your S2000 or maybe a project cars and go spinning them around?
Not really. I mean, I think he's probably driven mine, the blue car, my S2000. That is, a couple of times over the years. I don't think he's driven it since it's really been. I think it was maybe when it was like bone stock.
Sure.
Like when I first got it, for whatever reason, we haven't shared one of those moments or whatever. But probably the bucket seats and all that crap.
But the whole potential, perpetual tinkerer, that's turned into a role he played with First Class Fitment and the awards, right? So you guys created these awards that obviously the people who know it has a bit of an iconic kind of feel to it, the half wheel, right? And then, your best of show this time is the full wheel, the face. But like you mentioned during the awards, it's, I captured that moment in the vlog, that I'm going to put out about it. But you were talking about, I have to give thanks to my father. So he was the one machining them and cutting them.
Yeah. So for the most part, I mean, there was a couple years where we had some help with that, or I think one year where the CCW guys had cut them for us. But my dad's always done the kind of the legwork and, taking a pile of parts or a wheel and a piece of wood and a plaque or whatever, and really making that all come together into what they are. So, we've, Yeah, it's been a fun experience, as a father-son kind of thing to, my dad's always been there to help me fix a car or install a part or, teach me something along the way with the cars. But this was kind of something different for us with the car show. And, but he, again, kind of took an idea that we had and ran with it with us. So.
Okay, I mean that's beautiful. I mean, you got people who don't have dads. Yeah. They don't have a male figure, or if they have one, maybe not a good one.
Sure.
So it's been a blessing for you to have him, and then I witnessed with my own eyes. When I came and I saw you guys setting up. And we're all kind of just there, and everyone's doing their thing.
Sure.
I didn't realize that the gentleman passing by was your dad.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very cool thing, and obviously learning more about this history about him being a through and through car guy, and a mechanical, engineering inclined gentleman who taught himself, right.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. That helped to kind of go into your DNA, obviously.
Yeah.
So you get to this point. You meet these guys.
Yeah.
So photography, cars, photography, this whole era of your life, right? And it creates this brand.
Sure.
Full first relationship, right?
Yeah,
you develop this camaraderie with these guys, and you have this creative inclination, and you guys, put your heads together, and this comes to pass. So, I mean, how did all of that in the decade of doing it, how did it work when you were in a relationship?
Yeah.
And balancing a significant other that turned into a wife.
Sure.
How did you do that? And the day job.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess it, it's tough at times. I mean, let's face it, there's only so many hours in the day. We all have, a lot of us have day jobs and outside of cars and, our hobbies and passions. And so I fall into that category. And, yeah, sorry. And, and so, sorry, lost my train of thought there, but, we all have, we all have, our day jobs and commitments. And it can be a juggling act at times. I think it's a matter of just understanding where your priorities lie, like what comes first, what comes second, and looking at what you have on your plate, and knowing when you have to maybe focus on one thing versus another, and dedicate the time to something to get something done, or and so the car show, while it's been a big part of my life over the past 10 years, it's for me personally, family and my friends and work have been my first priorities. And the car show,
as they should be.
So but for a few months leading up to the car show, it does become a big priority, and my life after days after work or on the weekends, and my time available to do other things with friends or family, it gets a little tight or limited.
So how was she 10 years ago? I mean, how long have you guys been together?
About 11 years. So, so she's been around.
So right after she meets you, all of a sudden you jump full-fledged into this project of a clothing brand and photography and a website. So she's seen it from day one.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so how has that been? I mean, look, let's be honest. There's a lot of guys who are like, my significant other, girlfriend, I would use the word tolerate. Like, she tolerates my guy friends. She tolerates the car stuff. That's a word I've heard, a kind of version of a word.
Sure.
But how has that been for you?
No, I mean, I had been in a relationship through college and high school even, where I was with someone that tolerated
Yes.
my passions or my love for cars and that side of my life. And at one point or another, I realized that tolerating wasn't enough. It wasn't going to work, or I wasn't going to be happy, and both of us wouldn't be happy in that type of relationship at the time. And so that ended, and and then it's not too long afterwards, I had met Heather, and she was actually into cars and had a car of her own. And so that's actually how we met, through a mutual friend. And
Well, what kind of car did she have?
she had a Volkswagen, a GTI, a Mark IV GTI, and coincidentally, one of my best friends introduced me to her. He's into photography as well.
Yeah.
Local, and he had planned to go meet up with her and take photos of her car.
Yes.
And we lived in New Jersey. She lived here in Pennsylvania, 30, 40 minutes away, not too far away. And I tagged along. And so did a bunch of other friends, actually, that were at the show yesterday and here at my house tonight. And that was the first time I had met her. And I don't want to say it like, fireworks went off on day one, and
you don't want to say that?
Well, no, I mean, like, so is, we were there's a bunch of people, I maybe said all but a few words, introduced myself to her.
But was your soul and your loins tingling already?
Not, it's funny because she was there with another guy.
Yeah.
And my first impression was that was her boyfriend.
Yes.
And it wasn't.
I mean, that's a natural first impression.
So, guy came with her, they were in the car together, thought that was her boyfriend, maybe first inclination is she's off the market, And,
but I mean, if you're thinking that, you were already inclined.
Maybe, in some way, yeah. So, here's a pretty girl that had a cool car, and, in some way, yeah.
Okay, well then how, though? How did you get past this fake boyfriend?
Yeah, so then I realized, it wasn't her boyfriend, and she was on the market, I guess, so to speak. Yeah. And she actually put together weekly get-togethers,
car get-togethers?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So, little meets,
Sure.
But just local kind of get-togethers once a week, usually during the summer, and they were more Volkswagen, Euro kind of things with guys and girls in the area. Up. And my friend who had introduced me was a Volkswagen guy, and was in that kind of scene, if you will. And so I would tag along, and it was kind of.
Did you drive or ride shotgun with him?
I think I drove, actually. Yeah. So even the day I met her, I had my Civic there.
Yeah.
But I had my Civic, and it was on BBS LMs.
Okay.
And so, in some weird way, because some of my good friends were into Euro cars, my dad had the Volkswagen before. Even though I was into Hondas and, loved that Japanese car culture, there's also a side of me that really loves European cars and Volkswagens and Audis and other Porsches, etc. And just, so in some weird way, there's details in all of from the Civic on, I'd say details or maybe some inspiration that has come from not just Japanese car culture, but also European cars.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
there it is. I mean, how did you break the ice at these gatherings?
So I would I guess I was going to some of those meets and with friends, and I guess we just, we'd oftentimes go after the meet, we'd go to a local bar, restaurant, get food together, all sit down and have dinner or whatever. And, one thing led to another. I was, we got to talking and hanging out more often. And then, it just became...
In real life? You didn't poke her on Facebook?
No. No.
Okay.
No.
So about a year in, till you guys are official, you do this Nashville trip, and next thing you know, it's just hey, we're gonna do this car show?
Yeah. So, Yeah, I mean, she was around, we were dating actually right before we went on that Nashville trip.
Okay.
Is when it kind
Sure.
of started, when we first started dating. So, we started dating and then went to Nashville. And so I went, she stayed home and, didn't join us. But it wasn't until the next year, actually, that she actually came with us to Nashville for the first time.
See, that's cool. So there you go. That's kind of an example of not just tolerating, but being a part of it.
Yeah, she's always been a part of my hobby and passion for cars. So that was a game changer for me, and one of, I think, one of the things that I attribute to, I guess, our love, our relationship together, and that we both understand and appreciate each other's passions and hobbies.
Yeah. So I mean, look, you have the wife.
Yep.
You have 2 cats. And you have a new dog, right?
Yeah.
You have kids,
Yeah.
right? So is that kind of, as much as that sounds, does that translate directly to, I don't have the energy or the time to do first class fitment anymore?
No, I mean, it doesn't actually. So that might sound surprising to some, I guess, or maybe people. A lot of people yesterday asked that, and leading up to the event, and some even just assume that that's the reason.
Sure.
And I get it, and I think that's fair, and it's probably certainly a piece of it.
Sure.
I guess what I've told people is that it's not any one thing. It's not necessarily,
But no, but like you guys touched on, ending on a high note.
Yeah.
It felt right. It doesn't have to be something catastrophic or some phase that's over. It's simply, it looks good where it is. It had a nice run.
Yeah.
It's branded itself. It has a rapport with the community.
Yep.
And so it's time.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I guess that's a good way of summarizing it. That's kind of how we looked at it, and with mixed feelings, of course. There's days or times that it felt like, well, geez, this could go on for 10 more years, or however many more years, and but it. Yeah, I guess there's part of me that, whether it's cars or the CANIBEAT or the car show, or at work, in my day job, or wherever, other parts of life, that have felt like I've grown the most and learned the most when I've put myself in uncomfortable positions or challenged myself in areas that I wasn't an expert in. I didn't know what I was doing, or I was exploring uncharted territories. So with that, I think, not that FCF or, CANIBEAT or have been a breeze, or that I'm like, I've learned everything I could that I could learn from them, but there's a side of me that thinks that, there's maybe something else out there for me, or next chapter or next step where maybe there is something else that I could challenge myself with, or learn something else.
In this realm, or in anything?
I mean, in general, but also, my passion for cars is not dried up.
Sure.
So
is there something specific that you have in mind? Maybe not to replace, but is there something you already have brewing? Maybe.
There's some ideas.
Can you touch on it? Will you share a peep?
I mean, let's face it, like, so even 10 years of FCF, right?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of ideas thrown out, like, do we do more than one event? Do we travel?
Sure.
Do we try and, I mean, we have one event that has been successful, that works one day out of the year. Why can't we do it more than one?
Yes.
So all those questions have come up, things that Roy and I, Christian and I, have talked about, and friends even, and while we've tossed the ideas around, it kind of went back to time, energy. We can do one really well, but can we replicate this? Can we, it's challenging to take an event that's very successful in one location, one demographic, whatever, one area, and then pick it up and move it to somewhere else. Like maybe you can, but the vibe's probably not going to be the same, or the audience will be different, or the community will be different, et cetera. There's all these different reasons, and you know this from your travels and working with events that
it is
that
substantially more difficult than I think people realize.
Yeah, so I think we recognize that from traveling to different Week Fest events, to traveling, seeing different IBOC events, to Import Alliance in different areas, right? Like we met going to Import Alliance Tennessee, and then we've gone to Import Alliance Baltimore. We've gone to Import Alliance in other areas, or seen other events that they've done. And not that it's a bad thing, but each stop has a different atmosphere, a different vibe, a different attendance, a different some bigger than others, and then that's fine. But that was one of the factors that, I think we had considered, and maybe even the question was, okay, maybe it's not another First Class Fitment. Like, do we want to have another event that's called something else somewhere else? So all those, we went through all that, and so I say that because, as FCF is wrapped up, some of those same ideas are still floating around in my head, right? Or, I've learned a lot over the past 10 years. Like, we've had successes, we've had some failures, we've had things that have worked or not worked, or, learned how to do things more efficiently, or, in a easier manner, I guess, like from the registration process to websites and to marketing and branding and et cetera. So, in some small way, I think of all that I've learned. If I could do it again, how would I do it differently? Or how would I take what I've learned and maybe apply it to another project or another event or whatever? So there are some of those ideas floating around. I said to myself months leading up to this event and our last event yesterday, it was like, that's great. I have these ideas, whatever. We've talked about a lot of ideas over the years, as I mentioned, but I'm going to focus on delivering or putting together hopefully a successful, memorable last First Class Fitment.
Yes.
And that's the priority. And then from there, who knows?
Yes.
So it is, I don't.
Well, Dave,
I don't know.
The last First Class Fitment happened.
Yeah.
It was good. Now it's time to start, take a breather for a day or two, and then discuss these other options, because I'm sure the community would be very interested to know. Yeah, no, that's kind of where I'm at, right? I mean, we're not even 24 hours after the last one, and I'm still digesting and kind of, playing back what happened yesterday and all the friends, family, and people that I got to see. And the one thing that was cool for me is that being able to witness the event through the coverage, right? I mean, I know Sebastian, I know Halcyon, I know Trench, and all these dudes, right? They're from out here, fantastic photographers, amazing videographers, self-taught guys, great personalities, great work ethics. That's the thing that I think for the people, maybe from the West, who don't really even realize that there's that much more out there. I mean, forums and Instagram, and that's gonna tell you. Yeah. But going to people, to people's regions, their cultures, whether automotive or not, that helps expand your mind. Of course. And as I've been blessed with the opportunity to travel in various contexts, I've been able to appreciate that. And then like we talked about, when I let you guys know, like, hey, look, it's your 10th one. Yeah. I'm coming. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. I'm excited to hear that, man.
I appreciate you. It's been, you and I have been acquainted for a pretty long time. In the way that our community kind of allows. Sure. But it was never overly personalized, we had a good rapport, I think, because you can kind of just tell when somebody's a good person.
Sure.
And you can sort of tell when somebody's like a douchebag.
Yeah.
And we didn't give each other any negative vibes. And so
No,
it's kind of,
agreed.
and then, you're very hospitable Christian, same thing. You can tell when somebody's like, yeah, I'm going to just let them do their thing. I don't need to talk to them because they're kind of a D-bag, right?
Yeah.
and so, we've never had that issue.
Yeah.
And being able to be here, aside from seeing fantastic photos and fantastic videos, the vibe, in person, the venue, the backdrop, dude, the golden hour in the morning, then the golden hour at night, so dawn and dusk. Oh man, I mean the style, the variety, the people. But when Crispy was interviewing you, I was there.
Yeah.
And obviously there's moments where you were literally choked up.
Yeah.
When you were on the mic, I actually I saw you fighting that a couple moments.
Yeah.
And it's respectable as a grown man in front of a bunch of other grown men.
Yeah.
There's a part of a guy who's going to be like, man, I don't want to be a bitch.
Yeah.
But then there's a part of you that's like, this is so intertwined in your like soul.
Yeah.
That it is hard to say those words. But how did it go, just on a quick note on that, how did it go that in the midst of your the twins and Roy and you, how did you end up being the one, Christian's off to the side handing the guys the award, but how did Dave become the one in front of the cameras holding the microphone?
It's interesting. So really, it's funny. I think when I look back at the first year, that was one thing we probably didn't really plan out. We knew we knew come when that day came around, we had awards to hand out. We didn't know who was going to do it.
Yes. Oh, I see.
And
so you kind of got to the end of the day and it was like,
kind of there, and I don't know if it was as much of an oversight as it was that the three of us don't necessarily gravitate towards that type of, outgoing, outward kind of, activity, expression, whatever you want to call it, like jumping in front of a crowd and emceeing, or giving awards to people. So we'd never hosted an event before.
Yeah.
We'd never given awards out to anyone before. We had attended other people's events, but here we were, the tables were turned, right?
Yeah.
And it was, I don't want to say we drew straws, but it was kind of like, I'm not doing it, you're not doing it, Right,
well, like you said during the awards ceremony, you're like, and somehow for the 10th time, I'm up here.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like just happened.
Yeah, it happened that first year, and I think part of it was that, I didn't know if I really touched on it early on, but the way that we kind of ran things early on was that we had a blog. That was CANIBEAT.com.
Yeah.
We had apparel and, merchandise that went with that. And that was kind of our store page, if you will. And so Christian really took to managing the blog and a lot of those operations. And even though I was contributing as a photographer and doing some writing and, I still helped out. I helped find some photographers and et cetera, people to share content. Christian was kind of more like the editor in terms of scheduling and also networking and finding people. And then Roy managed the store and the apparel and order fulfillment and setting up at other people's events and all that. And then when we got to that, towards the end of the first year and we decided to host an event, I kind of took the charge, I guess, on that.
Yeah.
And because it was in New Jersey and local to me, and we decided on that venue at the airport, and because I don't know, for whatever reason, it was something that I took to and enjoyed and had a kind of an idea and ran with it. And so those three things, we each kind of had our thing, right? And so the event kind of became my major contribution to the brand or to CANIBEAT and to, as far as the three of us were concerned, my efforts, if you will. So I think in that way, there's maybe, it felt like, well,
so you
knew
became a little bit more of the figurehead.
Yeah, I guess, I knew I managed the registration process. I, managed the planning and the event and, the permits, and I knew all the cars that were registered.
Yeah.
I knew the people and their names and what was special about their cars.
Yeah.
And I guess, in some weird way, like, that's kind of my, I like to get to know people, and I like to hear their stories.
Yes.
And what inspires them and their cars and what they've done to them, and I tend to remember that stuff.
Yes.
And so even 10 years later, I guess I try and give people that attention that I think they deserve.
Sure.
And learn a little bit about the people that come to our event.
Sure.
So, so for those reasons, I think it only felt right that even though I wasn't necessarily comfortable getting up on the mic and didn't know what to say probably at times, that I did the awards, and so it has continued on every year, and I'm certainly still not a natural at it, but hopefully people understand that.
Dude, Dave, they do. I mean, look,
Yeah.
if someone didn't know any better,
Yeah.
like if you didn't specifically say that particular phrase, somehow I found myself 10 years later still doing it. If you didn't say that exact phrase, right, someone would think that was your first time doing it.
Yeah.
But yet not in this dude is bumbling over himself.
Yeah.
Okay? So that type of like, innocence is translated, you know, because people know that it's coming from a genuine place, and it's not, you're not, that nervousness is a good thing in that sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of been a cool thing, because you tend to be a more mild-mannered person.
Yeah.
And then you're over there in front of like 6 cameras that are rolling, and 4 audio recorders, and then everyone, especially in this day and age, everyone's phones in the air. But you did a great job, man.
Thank you.
And obviously the applause from the individuals, all the tagging that's been going on, and during the day, of course, the photos. I mean, it's evident that you guys created something awesome, so it's great to learn about how your father, and then you meet your wife, and how cars have played such a role. So so FCF, what the future holds is coming, but you as an individual car enthusiast, aside from all this other stuff, right, you have 2 S2000s, right? So I mean, people know the blue one, and Advan wheels, right, the beautiful blue paint. But then, like when I was walking by earlier, and I was like, whoa, right? And I see this Silverstone, right? And I'm looking in there, and I'm like, am I looking at Alcon brakes? Right? So let's talk about that. Are those the 2 in the stable?
Yeah. So, oh man, it's funny. I've been at like kind of a weird crossroads with my personal cars, and some of my own tastes, I guess, in cars lately.
Yeah.
I've had the blue S2000. It's an AP2 for almost 9 years now, so almost as long as we've been doing the whole CANIBEAT and FCF thing, and it's a special car to me. I've done a lot of fun things with it. It's been kind of almost, for lack of a better term, a do everything car for me. What I mean by that, I guess, is from driving it to work on days that I want to drive it to work, to driving it to Houston, Texas with my wife, to Nashville, to North Carolina, to Massachusetts, all over, and to track days and car shows, and, all of the above. And so a lot of great memories, and a lot of fun with it. But, it's part of me, that side that appreciates all different types of cars and different parts of car culture, has me itching, I think, to experience other parts of car culture and different cars.
Other types of cars.
Yeah.
Okay, well, hold on, Dave. Then how do you end up with another S2 on C28, meaty tires, race brakes?
Yeah.
How did you end up with another S2000 then?
Geez, it's funny, and my friends probably give me the same crap for that.
Was it just a deal that was too good?
It was kind of a deal. It was kind of like, it was, it's not like I stole the car, it was just like a weird moment where I saw that I knew the car. A friend or acquaintance that I know through the S2000 community, Jim, he built the car, with the parts, most of everything you see on it pretty much, a few years ago, and he followed it, and we, he's a photographer, he's into S2000s, he's from Vermont, I'm from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and just online regular communication, conversation, whatever. And so I was always a fan of the car.
Yeah.
But he had let go of it a couple years ago and sold it to someone he knew in New Hampshire.
Okay.
And kind of lost track of the car, didn't really see much of it anymore. The guy that owned it, Honda guy, has had like 5 S2000s over the years, but not like not a photographer, not someone active on social media and whatever. So didn't know really much about where the car was or what state it was in. But I saw that it came up for sale, that the second owner was selling it as is and with all of the original parts and everything. And I knew the car was just, it was my style. It was...
Sure.
I never thought I'd be the person to buy a car that someone else had really built or put together. But I thought, the S2000 market's in good shape. People love these cars. I love these cars, even though I'm kind of teetering on the fence of like, hey, do I get something else or do I explore another part of the car community or whatever? It was kind of like, I don't know.
You just couldn't pass
the
it
stars
up?
aligned. Like and thankfully I was at a point where I had the money, I could afford it, and
Sure.
the car was checked out. It was better than I could have ever expected.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's in even better shape than my blue car. And so, it was kind of like a weird mix of like, it had some of the same stuff I like about my blue car, but it also had some stuff that like I've wanted for my blue car.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it was like kind of like a weird mix. And then there's like, hey, maybe at some point I like combine my favorite parts of both cars onto one and then get rid of the other.
Okay, so now that's what I'm talking about. So there you go. That might be,
there's an idea, possibility.
Maybe what you do, or if it's financially possible, you don't have to get rid of it.
No.
But let's talk about what is it that you're contemplating getting next, because you've touched on that a couple of times.
Sure.
When you say exploring another part of the car community, what does that mean though?
Yeah.
What are you leaning towards? What style?
It's funny, like, I host FCF, but like I enjoy going to a lot of other events, and over the past few years, a lot of those events have actually been outside of my normal what I've been doing for the past 9 years.
Yes.
So I've gone to a lot of Porsche events, concourse, just different segments of the car culture, if you will, and I've enjoyed it, and I've learned more about some of these cars, old and new, and different makes. A lot about Porsches. I've gone to some of I made a point to go to a big BMW event in this area, Impact, in Pocono, at Pocono Raceway every year, and enjoyed that. So, just kind of been exploring, like, other parts of other events, other parts of the community, and learning about these cars and individuals behind them.
Yeah.
And
so what is it, Dave? What are you leaning towards?
I think even before all this, someday I said I'd love to own a 911. And so that's something on the list.
Yes.
I don't, whether or not it's the next jump or car.
Sure.
I don't know. We'll see. But I think I need the bigger garage or the, next house or whatever, something to really
house it,
work on it, take care of it.
So is that what's first in line?
Probably
a P car, but like,
well, no, not necessarily a P car, probably the house,
the house
the garage,
first, sure.
But then maybe or and I've seen it a lot from other S2000 guys. It's funny, right? Because I've observed over the years a lot of friends and people I know with S2000s that have had one, sold it, come back to it, bought another one, sold it, bought another one. I know guys who've had 5, 6, 7 S2000s over the course of their car ownership experience.
Yes.
And they just keep coming back to it.
Because it's just that good of a car.
I guess, whatever. I mean, let's face it, like some guys don't like them for whatever reason. Some guys don't fit in them.
Sure.
Just the size of the car kind of limits sometimes. Like even guys who like Hondas say, "Oh, I'd love to own one, but it's too tight, or it doesn't feel comfortable for me, or whatever." But yeah, they're fun cars, and especially at the price point that they're at. I mean, short of going to buy some super low mileage collectible S2000, they're affordable for a lot of people, and they're drivers' cars in my opinion, and so they're fun to drive, and there's a lot of aftermarket support, and there's a lot of history, with Japanese car tuning culture, and so. They provide a great platform to work with, and so, but yeah, I think the BMW is an option. I think I've always admired a lot of the M3s.
Yes,
and, they're kind of maybe in some weird way like maybe a middle ground or a stepping stone, if you will. You see some guys go from an S2000 to an M3 or whatever. That's kind of maybe a logical next step.
But whatever the next step is, there is the presence of mind to know the storage facility for it, and a manner upon which
I don't want to buy a nicer car and then still park it outside. Because unfortunately, like you saw, I have a tiny garage at a townhouse and not a lot of space, and it gets challenging to store, especially two cars. I don't have room for two cars.
Yeah, in the winter. You guys have this crazy winter.
Yeah.
But I mean, there you go. Those are these adult type scenarios that have to come up. The home, the garage spacing. And
maybe that's a practical side of me,
Sure.
I guess.
Well, people should definitely have that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it'd be interesting given the things that you educate yourself with.
Yeah.
The types of vehicles that you have at your event, the way you've done certain things. I'm sure that you would have something, whenever that time came, we all look forward to seeing what you would end up doing with it. But I mean, cars are such an integral part of your life, not just from the event, but like you said, you have the two S2000s. Photography has had you exposed to so many types of cars, right? So it's a part of your life. But, I think it's a great example for people to see an individual who started off like the way I think many are, right? Whether they're into personally taking photos or at a bare minimum appreciating the photos they're seeing on vlogs, on blogs, on these websites, right? But meeting a woman, marrying her, right? Having a career, children, pets, a home, a mortgage, and all of the balancing that goes in, because you got a lot of people listening who are just like, I don't have any of those things. I'm just worried about the next car.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous thing because there are other factors. And so seeing the success of you as an individual and the maintaining a calm demeanor, there's no elitism, there's no conceit, and you have people who have half of the, accomplishments and there's a change in them. And so I think that people listening can get a very like an inspired kind of perspective to see someone who can be behind a brand, multiple brands, to be someone who could produce quality photographs and make a name for themselves, and develop a legacy without becoming an asshole. And that's important. I think it's an important thing to focus on. It's sort of just obvious in a way, but no, it can't. I don't want it to go over people's heads.
No, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I guess I attribute that to probably just my upbringing or my parents and the way I was raised. I guess in some way. I guess it's.
But look, Dave, whether with a good set of parents or a single parent or any of them.
Oh, yeah.
If someone were to be like, okay, so I'm listening to Dave's story, he has the dad, and his dad was in the cars, and they supported him. I don't have that, right?
Yeah, I don't want to, I mean, let's face it, like, we all have our challenges, right? I mean, my parents, they were both there yesterday and at the event, and they've been there every year almost. And they're very supportive of everything I do, and my sister and everything. So we're very fortunate to have them, but not everything's been peachy. And,
Of course,
and
but
so,
that's what I'm getting to,
Yeah.
Dave. What about the people who are listening, right?
Yeah.
They can relate to maybe one of the things you said.
Yeah.
But what about the person who's like, look, I'm all happy
Yeah.
that he did this.
Yeah.
But I don't have any of those circumstances.
Yeah.
And whether you want to call them a cynic,
Yeah.
whether you want to call them pessimistic, forget the title, right?
Yeah.
What would you, as Dave Tormey, say to someone of any age? They're just in a place where, like, I don't have those circumstances, and subsequently, I don't think I could ever do
Yeah.
any one of those things. What would you say to that?
No, I mean, we go through that a lot with our boys. I mean, they're both teenagers.
Yes.
And, going through that kind of phase of their lives is at this point where they're like trying to figure out what it is that they want to do and passions they want to pursue or careers. And,
Yes.
And what's possible and what...
Go ahead.
Yeah, so, and they're just trying to figure life out like most of us and what direction they want to go in. And, not only as, I guess, a parent, but also just personally kind of thinking about how I've, kind of tackled some of those same questions and
As an individual,
individuals.
yeah. And now you're having to convey this to your son.
Yeah, it's, it's kind of... how do you want, what type of impression or, I guess inspiration do you want to impart on them?
Yes.
And I think in general, the way I look at it is that, like many people hopefully, is that, life is kind of like what you make of it. And
Yes.
that although some people, have more than others, or maybe have access to more resources,
Yes.
or funds or whatever it might be.
Sure.
A lot of people that I look up to or that inspire me, and that have been very successful in, whether not just cars or photography or some of the topics that we talked about, but in business and in other areas, and people that I work with every day, maybe all come from different backgrounds, but some of the most successful people have come from nothing, or have
Yes.
come from very difficult situations. And I think it's through some of those difficult times that we learn the most, and that we build character, and that we realize how capable we are.
Yeah.
In order to face some of these challenges that we have in life, whether they're at work or at home, or in pursuing a business opportunity, or whatever the case might be. I think it's kind of a matter of perspective, and realizing that not only being confident in your abilities, but realizing that there's always going to be someone that's stronger, faster, richer, better looking, whatever the case might be, but not letting that
break you.
Yeah, like not letting that knock you down, not letting you, write yourself off as, any lesser than those people, and that, trying to recognize what your strengths are, and where they lie, and where your passions lie, and using those to try and better yourself, better other people, and hopefully share that with other people, and just hopefully leave the world or your community or your family in a better place than where it maybe was when it started.
Yes. I mean, look, there it is. A lot of people will give you the more like shock value answer. Like, fuck that, work harder than everyone else.
Yeah.
And I believe in that.
Yeah.
But sometimes it doesn't have to be so profane.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be so hardcore. It could be just as simple as just work to make your environment and the people around you better than it was before
you. I think continue to try and better yourself.
Yes.
I think the idea that, we all have a limited time here on, and with each other.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we don't know when our time is up.
Yes, right.
And, why not take advantage of the little bit of time we have to try and be the best version of ourselves
Yes.
that we can. So, and that doesn't just, it extends so far beyond cars and
It is,
family even, and you know, it goes back to our health and our fitness and and our mental health and taking care of ourselves, you know. So you know, I think it's all a piece of the puzzle, right? And I guess if we don't have some of those other things in check, and if we don't take care of ourselves and think about maybe what we're consuming, not only, you know, physically as in terms of food, but mentally in terms of entertainment and social media and other things that surround us in this world.
Dude, fill yourself with knowledge, not nonsense.
Yeah, right? So, I mean, it's so easy to get sucked into, you know, Instagram and Facebook and negative energy, really, and the news. And I think there's, and, you know, personally, I think I try and balance that, right? I try and be aware of enough of what's going on and what's happening not only around the world, but in business or, you know, and just in general, I guess, kind of stay aware enough to be able to, you know, carry an educated conversation, hopefully, or make, you know, kind of make my own opinions of what's going on, but keep an open mind, and also understand that, you know, it's far too easy to kind of go down a rabbit hole of just like negative energy and people or outlets that really aren't helping your own, you know, mental health or physical health and so it kind of, just like your parents tell you, you know, or, you know, it's like surround yourself with good people, like the same is true with everything else around us. So I think that's an important piece of my own, I guess, little bit of success and trying to balance everything.
Well, there you go. I mean, honestly, Dave, I think that type of advice is invaluable. I mean, everyone has a different way in which they can share their life story and their experiences, you know, and everyone's got a delivery method, and that the simplicity of that is it rings true no matter what. Make the community better than it was before you know, leave a place better than it was. And I think that's profound, you know. And so you know, I feel like that's a perfect way to kind of a segue on, you know, from first class to the next car you're going to build to, you know, the next phase of life, you know, new home. There's so many different ones, and everyone's got a different one. Some people are 10 steps behind, some people are 10 steps ahead. But, you know, these last few things that you touched on, that supersedes all of that financial or familial dynamic, work ethic, and striving to be the best of what you are is applicable at any point in our lives. So that was a perfect, you know, way to kind of touch any demographic listening. So, you know, I mean, I think this was a fantastic conversation. You know, community conversations is all about bringing the community together and helping us learn from one another. And I think that you did that here for us today. So thank you for being a guest. I appreciate you.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Mike. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right, guys. So I will tag Dave and all of the associated, you know, people and companies and anyone that he's involved with, so you guys can see what it's about. If you don't know what it is or who he is, you'll have the opportunity to do that. Just go to my personal Instagram. Then his will be available, and you know, comment, follow, and you know, interact. The interaction is vital. You know, this isn't just to put information out there necessarily. If there's a comment, a question you want to ask him, feel free to do so, and he will answer you as quickly as he possibly can. And same goes for me. So, you know, the conversation is never one-sided. You know, your guys' input input and experiences are important to the both of us. So I'll tag Dave, and you guys will be able to see him and what he's building and doing, etc. And same with myself. So once again, all of you guys, thank you for listening. Think Bigger Project, Think Bigger Podcast, Community Conversations. We'll see you guys on the next one.